Patreon.com/the Walk-Off Podcast. $4 a month gets you in there.
It is a Monday morning mailbag on a Tuesday afternoon kind of day. My favorite show. It's the least work we got to put in, buddy. Yeah. There's no researching. We just go through the angry comments and pull those out and away we go, right? Obviously, everybody, we really appreciate all of the interaction over the last week. It has been insane. We have had a pile of super quality guests, and I think that has driven engagement a little bit more. We are going to get to as many of these as we possibly can, but I swear we're scratching the surface here. Maybe we're hitting 1% of all of the comments, DMs and stuff like that. So don't take it personal. If you didn't get it on, feel free to keep trying. Obviously, we try and be fair. So if we're seeing your name show up over and over, we will eventually get to your comment. To get a hold of us, you can reach out on Twitter at Walk Off Podcast. You can reach out on Instagram, the Walk Off Podcast. Join the Discord. The link for that is in the show notes. That is a happening place to be to talk Blue Jays baseball. And then, of course, you can just do it the old-fashioned way and drop a comment in YouTube. Like how I eliminated the from that, buddy?
You're so good.
I'm so young and hip, right?
So
I didn't
young
even say the YouTube.
So young and hip. Speaking of young and hip, with our interview with Chris Beck yesterday, and you asked him scale of 1 to 10, Friends, and he was like, the show, and he's never seen it before. Ian,
think about that, gang.
That video's up early on Patreon. It'll be out probably in the next week or two, but Ian commented on that video and laughed. He's like, Friends, the show, you guys are so old. So, it's fair. That's a fair comment. All right, couple things to get to before we get to the mailbag. First and foremost, well wishes to long-standing member of the walk-off community, John Dick, who underwent surgery last week and is doing well.
Heart surgery, so. Yeah, and he's come out the other end, and things went well. So a big like Adam said, well wishes, and we're hoping for a speedy and problem-free recovery for you, John. All the best, buddy. Of course, John Dick in Kelowna. He won our Jose Barrios jersey.
Hey, there you go.
And the Patreon giveaway a few months ago. Yeah.
Very good. Speaking of Patreon, before we move on, Jason Burnett reached out on Twitter a few days ago. Said, I'd like to support the pod. What's your process with Patreon? I haven't signed up for Patreon myself. I believe you just go to patreon.com/the Walk-Off Podcast, enter an email address, enter a credit card, and you're in.
That is correct. In fact, Jason, welcome to Patreon. Jason Burnett, one of, we've got about 12 new members over the last 5-6 days. So very, very cool to see the Patreon growing. You can again do that at patreon.com/thewalkoff. We do have reasons for you. Yes, Walk-Off Podcast. Sorry. Thank you, Adam. There is good reason for you to do this. Obviously, interviews is a big one. All right. Like, we get so many amazing interviews and guests, and you get instant access. Especially right now in the off season, we are literally piling them up. I take off to get married and honeymoon for 3 weeks here, come January 20th to the middle of February. So I'm not going to be around. Adam's grabbing the bull by the horns and running the ship here, but you're going to get those interviews released over that time. But if you don't want to wait to hear from great guests like Chris Beck, like Adam just mentioned, we've got Robert DiBernardo coming up this afternoon. He, of course, the head of the mental performance department.
Save this list, Scott.
Yes.
We got a whole segment on upcoming guests.
Okay.
But I'm thrilled you're excited. I'm excited too.
Also, trivia night at the end of the month is going to be very cool. Major League, get in on it. Go ahead, Adam. Let's move on.
No, that's good. That's what I was gonna get to. You jumped. You got me. All right. Let's move on to mailbag. Upcoming guests. Let's talk upcoming guests here, shall we? You know, when people
put a pin in it, Scott.
You know, here's the thing, Scott. When people see this clip and it starts with me saying, upcoming guests, and then you laughing
Just
way
lose
too
my
hard for
mind.
no reason.
Yes.
All right. If you are watching this on the Clips channel, you missed the whole charming
30
introduction that you get on the full channel over there. So if you
Yes.
are just checking us out on the Clips channel, go head over to the main channel sometime, and lots of more
Basically,
shenanigans
what
there.
happened is 30 seconds ago, I started to get into the guests coming up, and Adam's like, whoa, Scott, we've got a full segment on this. Put a pin in it. And then we're like, all right, time to move on. And this is what he brought up. So this is where we're at. Anyways, true professionalism here on the walk-off. One of the reasons we're number one on the charts. No, just a
And
humble brag there.
and and for anyone who's not watching us on the Clips, just got that instant replay, and they're
And they're
tuning
like,
out.
what is this? Yeah.
They are tuning out. All right.
Okay, focus in here. Let's move
focus
along.
in. All right. Aaron McDonald reached out on Twitter and said, "Great work on the podcast over the last couple weeks. My need for baseball is strong this time of year. Keep up the awesome work, fellas." So this time of year, typically our busiest time of year as far as interviews and stuff goes. Much easier to get the Shai Davidis, the Jeff Blairs, the
Ben Nicholson Smiths.
Ben Nicholson Smiths, Joe Siddles of the world,
Mm-hmm.
when they aren't also doing their own daily grind on Sportsnet. So lots of good interviews. Related comment here from Edward. This one made me laugh. And then, yes, we will get into the upcoming guest list, Scott. Edward says, "Holy shoot, Jeff was actually somewhat charming to listen to here. Good job, fellas." None of that comes across on his own show with Kevin Barker or when he's on Sportsnet Blue Jays broadcast.
We have a way of coaxing out the charm in some of these announcers.
Look at us go. All right, let's run down the list of upcoming guests, shall we?
Yes. Very excited for this.
So you mentioned off the top, we are actually sitting down with head of the high performance department with the Blue Jays, Robert DiBernardo. We actually sat down with him last year, and that was a awesome conversation. So
It really
I'm
was.
really looking forward to catching up with him later today. That episode probably won't be out for a couple weeks, unless there is something that's really time sensitive. But again, you can catch that on Patreon right away. We got a couple more prospects
Right? Chris Beck,
coming
who
our
we
way.
talked
Chris
to just
Beck.
yesterday. That was
Uh,
a great interview, by the way. Harrison Devereaux is another guy that we've already talked to, and that interview should be out shortly. He, of course, a right-handed pitcher in the Vancouver Canadians bullpen on his way up on the rise. He was drafted last summer. Tomorrow, we chat with Kelvin Escobar. Some of you Jays fans
hey,
may remember him from the 90s. He was a Blue Jay for years before going to the Angels. And then tomorrow afternoon, we chat with the prospect that came back from Seattle in the Teoscar Hernandez, Eric Swanson trade. Adam Macko is going to be joining the show. We've got Hagen Danner on Thursday. And as if that's not enough, Adam, go ahead and let everyone know who we wound up getting to come back on the show.
Danny Jansen, friend of the show, coming back Thursday afternoon. So we got lots to talk about. Lots to talk about. I'm excited. It's going to be a great week.
Listener questions, feel free to reach out to us. Honestly,
Please.
If you're on Discord, that's a great way of doing so because we always announce the guests in advance and then you can kind of go in there and put your question. But you can DM us on Twitter. You can reach out on Instagram. We love to hear from you, the community members. So please, if you've got a question for any of the guests we just mentioned, reach out.
I mean, look, we do always say Patreon gets front of the line business class seating.
If you
when it
pay
comes to the
us,
question.
you come first.
Well, within reason. I
Yes,
mean, let's be honest. If you have just a great question and you're a cheapskate, as a fellow cheapskate myself, I
Yes,
can relate.
yes.
I promise you, I assure you, if you Twitter us or Instagram us or text us if you know us or send us something in Discord, if it is a good question, we will not pass you over just for being poor.
One of my favorite Twitter accounts, by the way, Spencer and Dr. Internet. Those are the two best, most hilarious Twitter accounts on Blue Jays Twitter, and Dr.
Okay.
Internet had a question for Ben Nicholson Smith, and it didn't make the cut.
I
And he
couldn't.
reached out afterwards because he was like, "What the hell, man? I just listened. I'm on Patreon, and you didn't mention my question." But the question was so funny. It was. Go ahead, Adam.
The question was something like, "Hey Ben, where do you get your great sources when someone gives you a scoop? And could you provide their name and phone number or something like this?" Uh, I mean, great question. I don't know
Great
how to
question.
actually ask that to Ben Nicholson Smith, but anyways, okay. Shall we move on from there? This is
Let's do it.
okay. Espinal trade. So this came up when talking with Jeff Blair last week. He does anticipate another move coming before opening day. And he threw out Espinal's name as what he considers a likely trade candidate. We got a question here on that video from Twitch Ezio Han Solo. Are you a Han or a Han guy?
I'm a Han.
Han, okay. I'm a Han. Anyways,
Okay.
Han or Han Solo wants to know why Santiago, why not send Bichio? I mean, great question. A
And
lot of Blue Jays fans prefer Santiago Espinal over Kevin Biggio, and I can see
why wouldn't
why.
you? Yeah.
Um,
Funny thing is, many organizations prefer Santiago Espinal to Kevin Biggio. So that would be the answer to that question. And listen, this is all speculation. Jeff Blair was just kind of looking at this roster, seeing areas of need, seeing how many capable second basemen are
well,
on this lineup.
he did pull out a little glint of educated hypothesis here from his talk. I mean, him and Blair and Barker
Yeah.
had Dalton Varsho on their show last week or the week before, and reading the tea leaves, Jeff Blair glimmered a little detail. Maybe he's reading too much into it, maybe not. But Dalton Varsho, when referring to his teammates and how excited he was to join this team, referred to the second baseman as being Whit Merrifield.
Mm-hmm.
So, maybe that's a little slip of the tongue where we're getting some insight where that is the Blue Jays' plan, is for Whit Merrifield to be more or less the everyday second baseman.
I mean, we talked the crowded catcher position for a year before we actually saw a trade made, but second base is a crowded position right now. You've got Kevin Biggio, you've got Santiago Espinal, you have Whit Merrifield, you've got Otto Lopez, you've got Addison Barger.
According to some
All of
fans,
them are on the 40-man roster.
According to some fans, you've got Bichette, who's a second baseman as well.
Yeah. Well, possibly.
All right. So why Espinal? Why not Biggio? It's just that simple, right? We're just talking about return on investment. This is the haul you would get back, right? Plus, I think
Espinal was a all-star
and
last year, right? Values
Espinal
higher.
and Merrifield are also a little bit of a redundancy in terms of what each of them brings to the Blue Jays. Whereas at least with Cavan, there is a
left-handed bat.
Left-handed bat. Well, I mean, if that's what you're going to look at, if you're going to say, look, we're going to take two MLB second basemen into the season, they're either both righties or a righty and a lefty.
Mm-hmm.
That just makes more sense. Is like, why not have the option of a left-handed bat? So I think
now
that's a factor.
The one caveat here, the one thing that I think would deter this organization from moving off of Santiago Espinal is how good of a defender he is when it comes to being able to play third base and shortstop. Listen, there isn't really a backup shortstop on this team. And yes, one of Bichette's strongest suits is that the guy goes out and plays every day, right? I think he played 159 games in 2021. I think it was like 157 last year. Like, the guy is on the field every single day. But to not have an insurance, a plan B, if you will, and an insurance plan, it's risky. So I don't know if I guess what I'm saying is that I would rather Espinal be the backup than Otto Lopez. Nothing against Otto Lopez, young kid coming up the ranks, but maybe Otto Lopez is ready, and maybe this organization, obviously the scouting department and the player development department knows more than anything Adam and I could fricking say. So if they think Otto's ready, then maybe they are ready to move off of Espinal. Espinal, without a doubt, though, has the biggest value of anyone on that second base roster that they could move outside of maybe Whit Merrifield, and I think the Jays have decided he's the guy, right?
He's the guy. I don't think he'll get renewed, but he's the guy till the end of his contract. I think this year and next year. Or
He is
is this
he's
his
got
last
a
year?
pending he's got an $18 million mutual option for next year. There's no way the Blue Jays agree to that. They're going to decline that option and pay the $500,000 to get out of it, right? That's the buyout is half a mil. So I think that if Merrifield were to return, it would be on another deal that would be
Right,
signed afterwards. Yeah.
right. It is always just, I don't know, funny to me when with every trade. I mean, it makes me think back to the Dalton Varsho Moreno Gurriel trade, and it's like, why did we have to include Gurriel? Why couldn't it have just been Moreno? And it's like, well, that was the price, man. Like, that was that was the
Can you imagine the Diamondbacks organization goes to Ross Atkins and Mark Shapiro and is like, listen, we want Alejandro Kirk. We'll give you Dalton Varsho. And then the front office goes, you know what? Moreno. Let's throw in Lourdes too.
yeah.
Like I
That's
guarantee it's, like your teams are only going to move players for players that they find value in and want on back in
yeah.
trade in their organization. There's not a lot you can do about it.
Not a lot you can do about it. Yeah, you got
Or
to give
not do the
something to
deal.
get something. Yeah, absolutely.
Exactly.
Well, I mean, and that's why we figured Danny Jansen was going to stay all off season. Of
Mm-hmm.
the three catchers, we just thought of the teams who are in need of a young catcher, guy with more control, probably more appealing than a
Mm-hmm.
guy who's working through his arb years already. Okay, that's it for the Espinal talk. Let's move on from there. Jays looking to steal more, perhaps. So this comment comes in from Dulcimerist. It says something under the radar the Blue Jays have been doing is adding more speed to their lineup. Merrifield, Kiermaier, Varsho all have very good speed on the base paths to go with the speed of George Springer, Bo Bichette, and Kevin Biggio. With the rule changes, which include larger bags, limited pickoff attempts to first base, front office may be looking to capitalize.
Such an astute comment. Dolce nails it here. It is a little bit under the radar, a little bit of a sneaky move, bringing in the speed that they've brought in. Dalton Varsho is probably the closest thing the Blue Jays have had to a 30-30 guy in a decade. I'm not saying he is going to steal 30 bases and hit 30 home runs, but the potential is there for him to do it. He is an incredible base runner. For a guy who looks like a football player, the man can move. Another really interesting one too is Kevin Kiermaier, and Kevin Kiermaier is not necessarily a base stealer, but Kevin Kiermaier is a guy you're going to see go first to third all the time in 2023. He's a dude who is going to force the outfield to test the arm and stop him from scoring from second base. And this is an aspect of the game of baseball that maybe hasn't been as prevalent in previous years within this Blue Jays organization, and we are definitely going to see more of it. And again, with the rule change, right, bigger bases, it's just going to be more conducive to the base stealing game.
You mentioned Dalton Varsho looks like a football player. I made the mistake of saying when we first acquired him, this guy's built like a tight end. It was pointed out to me that he is not a tall man.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't realize this. Dalton Varsho, short king, listed at 5'10", and from what I've heard, that's a generous 5'10". Now,
One of
I'm look
those.
I'm looking at Alejandro Kirk listed at 5'8". I don't know if that's a generous 5'8", but I want to see those two butt to butt on the sidelines, and let's see who's taller. Uh, I mean, we all love watching Alejandro Kirk run, but maybe watching Varsho go first to third. Maybe that'll be my new highlight that I'm looking forward to. Yeah, I mean, speed on the base paths. I mean, we're talking about tweaking the team and trying to pull wins from the margins, right? And
Mhm.
this is how you do it. And I don't know how many we're talking rule changes, right? I don't know how many extra stolen bases this is going to amount to. Um, I I risk the comments already about being a Rogers shill here, but again, I do have to just acknowledge the fact that this team does appear to at least be making an effort to build a roster for what baseball is becoming, not what baseball was. So
Mhm.
I think there's value in that, and you're not going to get it absolutely right, absolutely every time. But
I think another thing worth sorry, go ahead, Adam.
just with these, there's two areas of rule changes that I think this team has addressed roster construction. One with the shift restrictions. This the moves this offseason have been in a way to get in front of that. And the only being able to have three outfielders instead of four.
Mhm.
It, you know, that limit of the shift, the Jays have gone maybe too far. We'll see. Like, there's a
Mhm.
chance that that's the case. They've gone overkill on the defensive outfielders, but at least they are looking at the way baseball is going and they're guessing to the best of their ability. And we can question how good is their guessing ability, but at least they're making an attempt to go, this is where baseball's going. Let's get out in front of it. Let's get some defensive guys out there. And then the same thing for the speed. I think this is a great point by Dulcimerist that with the bigger bags, it's going to be 6 inches shorter between,
Mhm.
it's 3 inches on each bag. Um, we're talking about bang bang plays, right? Like how many times
Yeah,
6 inches doesn't sound like a lot to the casual
but it's a
fan,
lot.
to the hardcore fan. You forget how many times a year do you see a guy and it's instant replay because it's so close, such a bang bang play,
Mhm.
right? We're
Mhm.
talking about every one of those bang bang plays is now safe by a mile, or, like
Yeah.
in slow motion when you're looking at
No,
it, you
for
go, oh,
sure.
he
You're
was
100%
way
right.
there, right? So stolen bases could be up 300% this year. Who knows?
I think another thing really worth mentioning here is that speed does not translate directly into stolen bases into good base running. I mean, Teoscar Hernandez had the best foot speed on this entire Toronto Blue Jays team. He was the fastest man on this team. He never stole bases, and he was a real bonehead on the base paths. Now, yes, when Teoscar was chugging from first to home, it was a beautiful thing to watch. As long as there wasn't any thinking involved or, needing to make any in-game decisions. Teoscar was great, fastest guy around. But I think having some guys on the base path with some base running acumen, like Dalton Varsho stole 16 bases last year. And I think just with that 6 inches Adam just talked about, you can add four more on there. You got a 20 base stealer without him doing anything more than he did just last year. Kevin
Hey,
Kiermaier is another guy we talked about his base running acumen. Anyways, go ahead, Adam. Sorry.
nope. I was just gonna make a inappropriate joke about 6 inches being all you need, but we're just gonna cut it there. Um, Makes a big difference. All I'm saying. I'm grown up. It is what it is. Okay. Well, anything else to add here? Speed on the base paths. I'm excited to watch this team. It's a little. We're gonna talk this in a second here. There's a lot of negativity toward Bichette, and we'll get to that. I don't want to spend too much time on it, but there's just so much negativity towards aspects of this team. I genuinely question if these people that are commenting are actually Jays fans or just not. and are just trolling. Like, it's just a
Mm,
Yankees fan who's in here like, "Oh, Bichette sucks," and whatever. Like,
yeah.
I'm so excited to watch this team. I don't know.
I am too. I am so curious how this all plays out because it is going to be interesting to see how these tweaks, this new direction, and it's a full on new direction. Defense first.
Yeah, it's I don't know. A lot of I guess a lot of the negative comments that I do see are related to, well, this team isn't going to win the World Series with this roster anyways, right? Everyone's entitled to watch sports or movies or whatever in whatever fashion they want. But if you are a Blue Jays fan who tunes in September and is just there for the playoff run, and if it ends early, you're missing out. Like, this is 6 months of entertainment we have coming up,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and I'm looking forward to it. Looking forward to it. I'm gonna cut all this from the segment because this is just bumming me out. So,
Okay.
all right, let's move on from there, shall we?
Yes. Let's.
Blue Jays bullpen, Scott. There was some chat in the Discord about the back end of the bullpen. So,
Yes.
Veracity made a comment about Eric Swanson, new pitcher we acquired in the Tasker Hernandez trade. Swanson has a consistent 95-mile-an-hour fastball with late movement. And he says, I know we all look for that 100-mile-per-hour gas, but it ain't going to do much if it doesn't move. Swanson's 95 is plenty fast, especially with that extra zip. And then another comment here that I can't even say with a straight. I know this is the only reason this even made the mailbag. I'm going to throw it to you to read out.
Yeah. So SCTI interjects and he's like, he's the Miracle Whip man, the one with zip. You can join the Discord. The link is in the show notes. And I will touch on Eric Swanson really quickly here because it is a good point. I know that there were some folks who were down on Eric Swanson solely based on his velo. And Veracity makes a really good point. It doesn't really matter about your velo if your ball's not, if the fastball's not, if it doesn't have movement, it's irrelevant. If you're not hitting your spots, it's irrelevant. Right? To quote Anthony Telford, no one gives a shit if you're not throwing strikes.
Okay.
It's
I thought that was the point of 100 miles an hour. Was like, I thought it didn't have to move. It was just that fast. I thought that was the whole point. Correct me if I'm wrong. I mean, yeah, you got to hit the strike zone, but I thought that was the whole benefit. Be like, wow, it's a straight line, but it gets there quickly. Am I wrong?
I mean,
Do you need some movement on 100 miles an hour?
Well, I mean, look at Montero with the Phillies. Like, it took him forever to frickin' figure it out. And it was because he wasn't hitting the zone. So,
This is two different things, though. We're talking about, does it hit the zone? Is it controllable, or does it move? I don't need a
movement.
I don't need 100 miles an hour that tails off at the end and hits the zone. I just need it to hit the zone as fast as it can.
I feel like you need some movement on that. I think if you could just, you need a little bit of movement.
No, you need just straight laser beams, man. Laser beams.
Laser beams. All right.
I want sharks.
Everyone in the comments, feel free. Let us know which one's right here. Do you need movement on 100 miles an hour, or can you just laser beam it dead center and just roll with it?
Look, you and I don't disagree very often. I'm surprised we were able to find something like this.
Yeah, only on stuff like this. Whenever it's about Atkins and Shapiro, then we're right on board and we're just corporate shills.
Exactly. All right. Well, then follow-up question, Scott. On your sandwiches, are you a Miracle Whip man, or are you a butter kind of guy?
Oh, I butter and then I mayo.
Ooh,
butter,
okay.
Mayo. It's a duel. It's a duo.
Very moist. I love it.
Yes.
Okay.
It's like Scott and Adam. You're my Miracle Whip, buddy.
I am a 90% of the time Miracle Whip guy. unless I'm on a road trip with my wife, and then it's just butter because she won't do mayonnaise, and I'm
Mm.
not sorting through the Ziploc bags to be like, "Oh, this one
Give
just
me the
has
mayo
butter. This
one.
one has
Yeah.
mayo." Like,
Okay.
so, and I'm not putting a pen mark on it. Anyways, we've gone totally off the rails here. Okay, this was good.
I'm just gonna like from the beginning of this show, it's been a mess.
Yeah,
Anyways, carry
that's
on.
perfect. Okay, let's talk Boba Um, Probably 700 comments in the last week, and I would say at least 500 of them have been more or less Boba is trash.
Hmm.
Uh, no, he's not. He's definitely not.
He
He's.
might be a second baseman, but he's not trash.
I'll hear the argument for that he would be better off at second base. I don't necessarily agree with it. I think he's still, well, for sure he's a shortstop this year. I don't see him
Yes,
getting moved
obviously.
mid-season. Um, he's finally of mature age. He's fully ripe. Let's taste the banana and see how good it is at this point. That's a weird analogy too. Frick. Let's start that one over.
Normally
Okay.
your analogies are so dead on, right? Like get back to the cheddar
The
being velo
cheddar.
analogy. That's
Yeah,
the
yeah.
that's the sweet spot.
All right.
Yeah, no, I agree with you, man. I think when it comes to Bichette, this year is going to be a big deciding factor for what this organization does with him positionally going forward. But an interesting thing with Bichette is it's not like there's a pile of really solid shortstops available in free agency over the next
Well,
couple of years.
that's what we're going to get to here. So, this comment from Darian on Twitter DM'd us and said, if you were Atkins, what kind of contract extension would you offer Bo? For Darian, with the fact that he's only 25, I'd probably do like 25 over 10 years kind of a deal.
So 250. Listen, Darian, I couldn't agree more. I love that. If we could get Bichette 10 years, 250, I think the Jays do that tomorrow. I
Sure,
don't.
but that's like offering Chris Beck for Dalton Varsho.
Yeah.
Like, let's just do that then. Let's just do the
Yeah.
one that's an awesome deal for us.
Hmm.
Um, he's going to get so much money. So much
Yes.
money. I mean, we talked to Ben Nicholson Smith about it. He threw out 340 over 10.
Hmm.
I mean, okay. Couple factors
And
here.
Ben pretty much straight up said Bo's going to free agency.
Yeah. Yeah. Very
He said
likely at this point.
he'd need to be blown away to not
Now,
lose.
one thing worth noting, just because he goes to free agency doesn't mean he doesn't stay with the Jays. We just saw
Of
with Aaron
course.
Judge. Aaron Judge was, disrespected in capital letters by his offer the last year of his arb with the Yankees, right?
And by the fans. Don't forget about the fans.
Yeah, booing and throwing batteries as only best Yankee fans do. He tested free agency. He got big money offers from other markets and came back to New York. So there is still a path to Boba being a long-term forever Blue Jay,
And that
despite
path
the disagreements
entails
right
a
now.
lot of money, a lot of money. Bless you, Adam. In true professional fashion, by the way, Adam has managed to mute and sneeze, and now he is back ready to go here. This is
I
why we're the #1 podcast on the charts. Sorry, go ahead.
I don't know if I was able to get my face off camera or not, so I hope no one saw my squinchy sneeze face, but we'll see. Okay, Boba mega deal. Here's what I'm looking at. There's, I guess, two of the biggest factors that, even if we say defensively he sucks, even if we don't see him take a step forward this year, right? Even if it's still 25 errors, but he leads the league in hits.
Listen, Xander Bogaerts is not a defensive whiz, and there is no way at 27 years old, when Bichette enters free agency in 2026, that he is not after a bare minimum of the Xander Bogaerts deal, and I think he's going to want a 3 in front of that. So Xander Bogaerts got 10 years, 287. There's no way he's not after 10 for 3, a minimum.
Well, Okay, so we are going to watch 3 off seasons of inflation, right? This off season, we're going to watch Shohei Ohtani make mad money. Jim
Yes.
Cramer, mad money for Shohei Ohtani. Now, does he pitch and play a mean bat? Yeah, he does. But he's going to raise the entire water level for all contracts, and everything else is going to be affected by that. Um, the following season, Juan Soto going to do something very similar as well. I wouldn't be surprised if Juan Soto gets a contract that starts with a 4.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. 3 years of inflation, right? So just as the Xander Bogarts as the comparable, as a baseline, plus add a couple off seasons of inflation. Uh, I guess that would be the third off season. So maybe it's only 2 years of what. Anyways, we're gonna
Yeah.
get critiqued on our math skills as we always do. Um, Numbers are going up. Here's the other thing. It is a very dry free agent class over the next 3 years, leading into Bo Bichette's free agency.
It's been
Here,
an embarrassment of riches at shortstop the last couple of years, and that is not the case going forward.
this is look. You can question Scott and I on our math, but here is the cold hard truth of the matter: supply and demand is a real factor.
Brandon
Okay,
Nemo loves supply and demand, lives for it.
lives for it. You see guys every year where it's like the stars aligned. They had a good off season, or they had a good season, and they were like the only option available. So anybody looking to add a, whatever criteria you're looking for, that's your only option. And there's always 3 or 4 teams looking for that guy. Here's the list of free agent middle infielders. I've included second baseman. Okay, so even if we're saying, well, the Mets might take a run at Bo Bichette, and they've already got Francisco Lindor. So maybe the plan is we'll just move him to second base, right? Here's the list of free agent shortstops heading into the Bo Bichette free agent year, 2026. So we got Brandon Crawford, 38 years old. Gio Urshela, 33. Paul DeJong, 33. Tim Anderson, not a defensive whiz himself, 32 years old. Willie Adames, not a defensive whiz, 30 years old. Bo Bichette will be 27. Trevor Story, if the
34, right?
yeah, 34. If he opts out of that contract with the Red Sox. Uh, if we
I mean,
expand,
these are
if we
not
expand to
all that.
second baseman, we're only adding Jose Altuve, who probably isn't leaving the Astros, and Gleyber Torres, who will be 29 years old. Ask any Yankees fan how they feel about Gleyber Torres.
He's probably the most sought after name in that bunch. I think even people who are down on Bo Bichette would agree with that. Maybe I'm full of shit. Yeah, I mean, there's been a lot of Bo hate in the last little bit, and it's kind of surprising to me. I get he sucks defensively. I'm aware. Like, it is frustrating to watch him, but you need to understand that this is not a Bo specific problem.
I
Like,
mean,
Adam just brought up Tim Anderson. Look into Tim Anderson's numbers. I would love Tim Anderson. But defensively, he's Bo.
this is the thing, and this is where and I just want to bring this up to like remind Blue Jays fans that there is a little bit of like blinders on bias when we watch Bo Bichette and he's struggling, and then at the end of the year and you check and it's like, oh, Bo Bichette led the league in errors again. And it's like, yeah, but he also led all of shortstops in games played.
Mm-hmm.
Like, did he
He also
have
led the
did he
league
have
in hits twice in a
did
row.
he have 5 more errors than Tim Anderson? Sure. Did he have 40 extra games played too? Like, yeah, that's also true. Like, shortstop is just a high error position as well. So when people are rough on Bo Bichette and say that he is not a MLB caliber shortstop, I just want everyone to recognize the fact that like there aren't a bunch of good shortstops out there. Like, it's a pretty thin list.
Mm-hmm.
Like, Here, I want
Again, Bo's 24. Like I know. I listen. We're not going to convince anybody who has already written Bo off and hates him. I'm aware of that, and I know that every time we defend him, people get all worked up. How can you guys be so fucking stupid? I don't know. I don't know how I could be so stupid. I just think Bo's, for what else is out there, is not so bad, and when it comes to offense, is a stud. So you put up with the errors for now at 24. You cross your fingers. You hope he improves defensively, and you'll roll it out another year. Because what are the other freaking options?
Well, here, I got fangraphs.com. This is depth charts by position, and they've got all 30 teams ranked. I'm not going to go down the full list, but
Mhm.
number one is the Rays with Wander Franco. Then you got the Twins with Correa. Padres have Bogarts. Rangers have Corey Seager and Marcus Simeon. The Mets have Francisco Lindor. The Phillies have Trey Turner. Then it's the Blue Jays with Bo Bichette.
Number 7 out of 30 teams.
A lot of that, yeah, is on the back of his offensive skills. He is a
Yes.
POS. I can't argue. He is a pure offensive stud. But I'm going down the list here. There's a lot of teams who are going to be in the market for what Bo Bichette is selling come 2026. The New York Yankees, hate to say, are going to be kicking the tires on a Bo Bichette. Now, do they have two
Oh God.
top tier shortstop prospects in Anthony Volpe and Oswald Peraza? Yeah, they do. But also,
Prospects
by
always turn out.
and by 2026, those guys are going to be where
Second
Bo
baseman.
Bichette is right now. Like there's going to be 3 years of growing pains and like, oh, like, are these guys ever going to figure it out defensively? Well, Bo Bichette's there. Let's just go throw money at him. The Cardinals, 14th. They'd take a run at Bo Bichette, I'm sure. The Rockies, who knows? Maybe the Rockies are contending by then, and they're like, "Hey, let's go get Dante's son. Remember Dante Bichette? Yeah, of course we do. Let's go get him."
Hmm.
The Mariners, 17th with J.P. Crawford. You're telling me you'd rather have J.P. Crawford than Bo Bichette? Of course not. Dodgers, number 20. Dodgers had a bad offseason, by the way.
Mhm.
Uh,
Maybe the
you think
first one in
you think
a
the
decade.
Dodgers aren't going to throw $300 million at Bo Bichette? I don't know. The Giants, Brandon Crawford's going to be retired by then. If they're still contending, why not? The Nationals, maybe they do get sold in the next year or two. Maybe the new owner, maybe it's Elon Musk or some other
Hey, and these
billionaire. And they're like,
these are
hey,
all organizations you're naming that have gone big on money before, right? So like 3 years looking into that crystal ball, it's really tough to decide what the landscape is going to be like in baseball. But let me tell you right now, Bo Bichette is going to be coveted, whether you like him or not. And the options outside of Bo from within might not be any better. In fact, I bet they're not. Anyways, we'll move on from Bo Bichette here because we have talked Bo a lot over the last couple weeks, and we do appreciate all of the interaction about it. And honestly, if you're negative on Bo, that's your opinion, man. Like that's fine. Do your
yeah,
thing. Like Adam said, right? You can enjoy baseball however you'd like to, and if that's being incredibly negative on all of the superstars on your team, hey, you go to it, bud.
we have a sarcastic expression around my house whenever we catch ourselves being critical of the way someone else in the family is enjoying a particular thing. And we always catch ourselves and we say, "You're having fun wrong." Right.
Mhm.
And then you
Yeah,
realize and you go, "Oh, that's not a real thing.
that's not a thing. Yeah.
That's not a thing." Right. So have fun the way you want to have fun
Yeah,
if you,
yeah,
whatever.
totally.
But all right, let's move on from there then. Okay, last one is what you watching this weekend. A bunch of comments asking to bring this
Nice.
back and expand on it. So last week or two we haven't gotten around to what you watching, but let's get into it right now, Scott. I finally started watching Yellowstone. It
Yes.
only took me 5 years to finally get around to starting it. So I've watched the first season
Cowboys
now.
Sopranos. It is the
Cowboy
best.
Sopranos. Yeah, no, it's quite the show. For so many reasons. Anyways, if you haven't seen Yellowstone, uh, so far, I mean, I'm only 12 episodes in, but so far so good. And
Kevin Costner does westerns and baseball really well.
Nailed it. Absolutely. Has kind of a non-fantasy Game of Thrones similarities to
It
it, I
does.
think.
It does have that
Uh,
sort of feel.
a lot of like powerful people kind of backstabbing and making these backroom deals and on all that sort of drama. And then of course all the good old cow wrangling stuff that happens. I don't know. I'm a city slicker, so what do I know about cowboys? What are you watching, Scott?
Speaking of Yellowstone, I just finished watching the spinoff 1883, which is basically based in Texas. There is a large group of immigrants that hire a posse of cowboys to guide them along the Oregon Trail up to Oregon, where they are giving away land, and it's beautiful, man.
Yeah.
Like I really don't know another way of describing that show. It is just the cinematography is incredible, the landscape's incredible, the story is absolutely awesome. And it's not anything like Yellowstone, like you described with the Game of Thrones backroom deals, power, power, power. It's really a story of survival and history, and it's very,
Hmm.
very cool just to watch these uh
How does it
cowboys and
how does it relate to Yellowstone then if it is a pre is this like the great 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 grandfathers coming to Montana? Is that the idea?
basically, they're on the way to Oregon, but then,
Mm,
without spoiling too much stuff, they do wind up stopping the journey
gotcha.
in Montana. But yeah,
Gotcha. Cool, cool. Well, there you go. Let us know in the comments what you're watching and let's share some recommendations to help get us through the off season. So,
honestly, I would just like to thank everyone in this walk-off community from the bottom of my heart for just being a part of this. Like Adam and I know I've kind of bragged about it a little bit throughout the mailbag, but we hit number one on the Apple charts for baseball podcasts in Canada, which is uh, it's stupid.
yeah.
Like
Pretty
we're
cool.
just a couple of boneheads. We love baseball, but we have no baseball background. We have no analyst background. I don't know why the hell you guys like this so much, but honestly, thank you so much. And yeah, we couldn't be where we are without you. So again, very much appreciated. Feel free to follow us on Twitter at Walk Off Podcast, on Instagram, the Walk Off Podcast. Feel free to join the Patreon. It is patreon.com/the walk off podcast, and you can join the Discord. Link is in the show notes. It is always free. Have a great day, everybody. Tons of interviews coming up this week. Enjoy the week, and we'll see you Friday.